It's a Tuesday afternoon, and you're sitting in your car in the parking lot of a grocery store, engine off. You ran the numbers in your head again on the drive over, not because something went wrong, but because something is about to. The water heater is making a sound. Not a broken sound, just a sound. And you already know. You already know that whatever it costs, it's coming out of the account that was supposed to cover the car registration next month. You've been doing this calculation for years. Not the water heater specifically, just the version of it that's always there. The one where every unexpected $400 ripples through four other things. You're not bad with money. You make a decent income. You have a house. You did what you were supposed to do. And still, every time something moves in a direction you didn't plan for, you're back in the parking lot doing math. Here's what nobody told you when you signed those papers. The mortgage isn't just a debt, it's a permission slip. You have to check it every time you want to do something different. Every career conversation, every risk you want to take, every decision about what your life should look like, all of it goes through one silent filter first. Can I still cover the mortgage? My name is Jay. I have spent a genuinely uncomfortable amount of time studying what actually happens to people's lives the day that filter disappears, and why the personal finance world keeps explaining it wrong. According to the Atlanta Fed's Housing Ownership Affordability Monitor, owning a median-priced home today consumes 47.7% of the median American household's income, nearly half, before a single grocery, car payment, or medical bill. That number has sat in the 40 to 50% range for 2 straight years. The standard that every housing economist agrees on is 28%. So the average American household with a mortgage isn't just stretched.
They're operating at nearly double the stress threshold every single month for 30 years. That's not an affordability problem. That's a structural condition most people are just quietly living inside. The Census Bureau's 2024 American Community Survey confirms the median monthly owner cost for mortgaged homeowners hit $2,035 in 2024. That's the median. Half the country is above it. The Mortgage Bankers Association puts median mortgage payments for recent buyers at $2,127 as of mid-2025. For anyone who purchased or refinanced in the last 3 years, the realistic figure is higher. And the Bankrate Hidden Costs of Homeownership study found that typical single-family home costs more than $21,000 a year to own and maintain when everything is counted. Read that last number again, $21,000 per year in costs that exist whether you pay off the mortgage or not. Wait, back up. That's the point most people miss, and it's worth being precise about. When the mortgage disappears, you don't suddenly have your entire payment to deploy. Property taxes, insurance, and maintenance don't leave with the bank. On a $400,000 home, you're still looking at roughly $800 to $900 a month in ongoing ownership costs. Property taxes that have risen 27% nationally since 2019, according to CoreLogic. That's not inflation, that's a separate tax on staying put. And homeowners insurance that has jumped 52% since 2020 because the atmosphere is apparently filing a class action lawsuit against everyone who lives near a coastline or a tree. So the real number isn't your full mortgage payment. It's the gap between your payment and those ongoing costs. If your payment was $2,127, you freed up somewhere around $1,200 to $1,400 a month in genuinely deployable cash. Which is, and I want to be exact about this, still a number that changes everything. Here's the math on that. Take $1,300 a month, redirect it into a basic S&P 500 index fund at the historical average return of 8% annually. In 10 years, that's $237,000. In 20 years, $770,000. You contributed $312,000 of your own money. The market added $458,000 on top of that, more than you put in yourself. The bank spent 30 years collecting interest from you. Now, compound interest works for you instead of against you. Nobody in the bank's office explained that part.
Meet the Riveras. Marcus, 38, a project manager in Columbus, Ohio. Priya, 36, a nurse. Combined household income, $118,000 a year. Which sounds solid until you run it through what life actually costs.
After federal taxes, state taxes, FICA, and a modest 401k contribution, they're taking home around $6,900 a month. Then, watch it disappear. Mortgage on their $360,000 house, $2,050. Property taxes and insurance escrowed in, $450. Basic maintenance reserve, $300. That's $2,800 a month to legally occupy the building. They've got $4,100 left. 2 car payments, $780. Car insurance, $260. Gas, $240. Student loans, because those degrees weren't free, $480. Health insurance premiums their employer only partially covers, $340. Groceries for 2 adults trying to eat like adults, $720. Utilities, phones, internet, $390. That's $1,110 left. Before anything breaks, before the kids' activities, before a doctor's visit, before any savings beyond that modest 401k contribution, before any actual concept of breathing room. The Riveras aren't irresponsible. They don't have a boat. They've never been to Napa. They are 2 working professionals who did everything by the book, and every financial decision they make, every conversation about career changes, flexible schedules, side projects, going back to school, gets filtered through one question that runs silently in the background of their lives. Can we still cover the mortgage? That question is the invisible hand, and it's never off. There's a 2019 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academies of Sciences that the personal finance world mostly walked past and shouldn't have. Researchers at the National University of Singapore tracked what happened to people when their debts were eliminated, not reduced, eliminated through a debt relief program. The results? Clinical anxiety symptoms dropped from 78% of participants to 53%. A 25 percentage point reduction in diagnosable anxiety from closing debt accounts. I had to sit with that number for a minute. Here's the part that stopped me cold. The number of debt accounts closed mattered more than the dollar amount of relief. Closing 1 additional debt account, any account, improved cognitive functioning by about 1/4 of a standard deviation and reduced the likelihood of anxiety symptoms by 11%. The brain doesn't care what the number is, it cares about the open tab.
The mortgage is the last open tab for most people. It's the one that outlasted the car loans, the credit cards, the student debt. When it closes, the refrigerator hum you'd stopped hearing finally goes quiet. Not metaphorically, measurably. Your brain is literally operating better. And here's the implication nobody names directly. You have been making the decision of whether to pay off your mortgage early or invest the difference from a cognitively impaired state. The financial stress of carrying the debt affects the quality of the decision about the debt. So weigh your own math accordingly. Now, someone in the comments is already typing, and I know exactly what they're writing. Jay, if your mortgage rate is under 5%, you're mathematically better off investing the difference. Let me give that argument the real version. The evidence for investing the difference is genuinely strong when rates are low. At 3%, the guaranteed return from killing the debt loses to the historical 8% market return in the overwhelming majority of 30-year windows. The spreadsheet is right, but the spreadsheet assumes 2 things it cannot know: that you'll actually invest the difference, and that you have the psychological endurance to watch your portfolio drop 40% in a correction while still owing $2,000 a month in mandatory payments on the house. One of those scenarios is uncomfortable. The other is the reason people make catastrophic financial decisions under duress. Actually, hold on. There's something else the invest the difference argument skips past. The bank rate data shows the average monthly mortgage payment climbed from roughly $1,100 in 2020 to over $2,100 in 2024. Most people who bought since 2022 are carrying rates between 6.5% and 7.5%. At those rates, aggressive payoff is a guaranteed return that's genuinely hard to argue against. The math window where investing clearly beats payoff is mostly occupied by people who locked in 2.75% during the pandemic. And good for them.
But they're a specific cohort in a specific moment, not a universal truth. The honest framework. Above 6.5%, aggressively pay down principal. It's a near risk-free return that beats most bonds. Between 4.5% and 6.5%, it's a real judgment call where both options have merit. Below 4.5%, invest the difference, but only if you'll actually invest it and not let it quietly become a subscription service you forgot you had.
The real answer was never a rate. It was always knowing yourself. That's it. That's the whole framework. 3 sentences, the Riveras again. Say they get aggressive, extra $500 a month toward principal starting in year 3 of their mortgage. That alone cuts roughly 7 to 8 years off the loan and eliminates somewhere around $140,000 to $150,000 in interest payments. Not because they earned more, because they understood what was accumulating in silence. At year 22, instead of year 30, the mortgage is gone. And here's what changes. Priya stops running every career conversation through the question of whether this job is stable enough to cover the payment. She takes the hospital administration role, more meaningful, slightly lower base salary, better schedule. They can absorb the difference now. Marcus starts the consulting business he's been talking about since 2022. One bad quarter no longer means they lose the house. The risk profile of his life just changed, and he didn't get a raise. Here's the financial independence math on that because it's more powerful than most people run. In FIRE math, the formula that says you need 25 times your annual expenses to be financially independent, eliminating $24,000 a year in mandatory costs reduces the Riveras' financial independence number by $600,000. Not because they earned more, because they changed what survival costs. And that number determines almost everything. Whether you can leave a job you hate, take a pay cut to do something meaningful, start something that needs 18 months to get profitable. No, that's not quite the right word for what happens. It's more precise than that. When your monthly survival requires both incomes running at full capacity, neither person can afford to do anything that threatens the income that feeds the mortgage. You're not trapped because you're weak. You're trapped because the math requires it. The mortgage is a 30-year employment contract you signed without realizing that's what it was. Here's the demographic picture, and it's worth sitting with.
According to the Census Bureau's 2024 American Community Survey, 39.4% of U.S. owner-occupied homes are now mortgage-free, the highest share in at least a decade. Sounds like good news. It's mostly not. Then you look at who those people are. About 63% of homeowners 65 and older own their homes outright, per Census Bureau and construction coverage analysis. But fewer than 28% of working-age homeowners under 65 do. The median mortgage-free homeowner got there through retirement, not acceleration. The National Association of Realtors reported in November 2025 that the median first-time home buyer's age hit a record high of 40, though other sources, including the Mortgage Bankers Association and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, using mortgage origination data rather than mail surveys, put the figure closer to 32 to 33. Even at 33, a 30-year mortgage doesn't end until 63. 3 years into what used to be called retirement. I don't know if trap is the right word, but I can't think of a better one. What's happening is that we've normalized dragging housing debt into the years that used to be the payoff window, and we're doing it quietly like it's just how things work now. The math on getting there 5 years early is more compelling than most people actually run. On a $400,000 mortgage at 6.5%, your standard 30-year payment is around $2,528 a month. Total interest over the life of the loan, approximately $510,000. That number deserves its own sentence. The bank will collect more from you in interest alone than the entire purchase price of the home. When I first ran that calculation, I actually went back and checked the inputs. I assumed I'd made an error. I hadn't. Someone decided that was a reasonable arrangement. That happened.
Those terms exist. Real people in real offices designed that product and made it the standard. Bi-weekly payments, splitting your monthly payment in half, paying every 2 weeks, results in 13 full payments per year instead of 12. That one mechanical change, which costs nothing in lifestyle adjustment, cuts roughly 5 to 6 years off the loan and eliminates a significant chunk of that interest. One extra payment per year. That's the whole intervention. Throwing an extra $400 a month at principal shortens the timeline by about 6 to 7 years. An extra $800 a month gets you close to cutting the loan term nearly in half. These aren't heroic sacrifices. They're the difference between the life you're living at 63, waiting for it to end, and the life you're living at 55, with no mortgage, making decisions based on what you
Actually want. That gap is not small. Before the practical steps, one thing I want to name directly. When the mortgage disappears, 2 practical things happen first. 1. Verify that your lender filed the lien release and you receive your deed. Lenders occasionally just don't file it, and you discover this 3 years later when you're trying to sell the house and find out you don't legally own what you've been paying for. File this under tedious and essential, which describes most of adult life. 2. Rebuild your emergency fund before redirecting a single dollar. You've been house poor for years. Get to 6 months of your new, lower expenses in liquid savings before you do anything ambitious. Then, deploy the former payment in order. Max the 401k employer match first. That's a 50 to 100% guaranteed return, and nothing on this list comes close. Max the Roth IRA. $7,000 in 2025. Grows completely tax-free. The IRS never touches the gains. Max the 401k contribution limit. $23,500 in 2025. HSA if you're eligible. Everything remaining into a low-cost index fund in a taxable brokerage account. If you redirect $1,300 a month through all of this, at 8%, in 10 years, you're at $237,000. In 20 years, you're approaching $770,000. Not because you did anything clever, because you closed the last tab and compound interest finally had room to do what it was always going to do if you'd gotten the bank out of the way. Here's the close. 2 versions of the same person. Marcus, 38, Columbus, $118,000 household income. Version 1. He and Priya make the standard payments for 30 years. They finish the mortgage at 68. During those years, every major life decision, career moves, business ideas, scheduled changes, gets filtered through the mortgage question. At 68, they're starting to redirect the payment. Comfortable, but the compounding window is short.
Version 2, they throw an extra $500 a month at principal starting now. They finish at year 22. Marcus is 60. Priya is 58. They redirect $1,300 a month into index funds for the next 12 years. At 8%, that's $287,000 in contributions from their own money, and the market adds roughly $120,000 on top. More importantly, between 58 and 70, they made every major decision based on what they actually wanted, not what the mortgage required. The gap between those 2 versions isn't measured in intelligence. It isn't measured in income. It's measured in one decision, made in one direction, held consistently over time. The mortgage isn't just a large bill. It's been the permission slip you didn't realize you were carrying. Some people get to stop asking permission early. Some ask it all the way to 68. The difference between them isn't luck. It's whether they understood what the finish line was actually worth and ran toward it on purpose. What decision has your mortgage been silently making for you? Drop it in the comments. I want to know.